So I come in from the side, I split the mark in half, and I just kind of touch it. And I look at that. And before it gets too deep, if I want to make some changes either in its angle, if it's in the center or not, you want to do that. I lost a bit of heat. So we're just building the heat here. These are still preliminary marks. So half of this class has never done this, so I'll cover some basics on this thing. And this is like a real good precursor for any kind of traditional joinery has the same premise to it. What we're looking for is the preservation of this dimension across here. And that's where I was saying, based on the geometry of your chisel or your punch, when I was using flat end punches, I was losing this dimension. I was squishing. Now, I'm going to anticipate this is going to get stuck because I'm going really deep. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It didn't. If it does, the first thing is you can't overreact. Let go of the chisel, turn it on its side, and start to forge that little bump out. And doing so is going to stretch the material and will generally release your chisel or punch. I tap fore and aft and say a prayer. Okay, came out. Then we look at the opening. Remember, this is kind of hourglass in shape because the tool's tapered, so the top is bigger than the center. And I just want to have, can you see, if you guys use your good eyeballs, can you see that this opening is smaller than that one? You agree? I don't want that. Let's see which is, that's the smaller side. Those look pretty even. I'm going to call it good. All right, so I'm going to stand right over this. Take a look at it. All right, so that's my footprint where it needs to go. All right, so that's a little bit to get started. And now with it just a little darker, I can see. Okay, so just enough to get it.
Can you just point that at me, please?
This is where it gets a little crazy. Drive that in there. Roll cherry red into it. It's all deformed. Just kind of flatten it up before it cools off. Cold already. Best I can. I am tipping. I told you not to tip things into the pot because it's what? When you tip, what? Too hot. But this lump is big. And what we want to do is hit this lump as hard as we can when it's its biggest. We get it, it's hottest. We'll back off the heat as it gets thinner. But right now, I'm tipping it in there to really get, I would say, almost a 412 heat. I've only got 2.5 pounds and this little body weight behind me to move this chunk out. So a couple sparks coming off, that isn't wrong. We also want to keep a nice consistent thickness so it's easy to grab in the vise. And I just kind of work incrementally, and I work from both sides. So I'm coming your way, Steve. Steve, get out of the way. Oh. Because you have a different perspective and a different amount of force. So it'd be good to split that. If we're all working to a handicap of handedness, which we are, way up here, and just work those edges down. You can't lay it back here and thin all of it. We need the thickness. We need the thickness of those pieces right here. and here. We just have to extremely thin the very, very ends. And it's tricky. It's a lot of very odd, uncomfortable work just on the ends. Kind of trying as well, splitting this back open.
Oh, I was going to ask if there's a trick for that.
No, just a lot of air. Oops. Being able to see it is helpful too. Just a little bit in the first heat, just want to get it open. Had a little mishap up there, just for you guys. I'm just going to nick around this a little bit. Now we got to forge half of this into the wedge shape. So you can see I'm just kind of lightly using my cross beam just on the very edge. Trying to preserve all the thickness in there, which we want later. So with some of this already hot, we're ahead of the game. The mass of the no, you passed. I'm going to do that first, and just tapping these edges down. That sounds solid. It's not really moving. And as soon as you start to see, and you've got to be aware of any significant scale forming on the surface, you've completely lost your forge welding ability. And stop